Okay, to our first author for this morning. Tim Higgs is a cultural psychologist and the owner and founder of Catapult LPC, which is an academy for leadership, performance and culture development. Tim is also the author of the international best-selling book Emotional Judo, Communication Skills to Handle Difficult Conversations and Boost Emotional Intelligence. It spent 18 months at number 1 in its category on Amazon in the US and won a Gold E-Lit Award in 2020. But Tim stresses he doesn't want to be known as that guy that just does difficult conversations. He believes it's merely just one tool in a leader's toolbox, albeit a very important one. Over the past 19 years, Tim has worked across multiple industries, training and coaching well over 5,000 leaders and managers in organisations such as Deutsche Bank, DHL, Tower Life Insurance, Nestle, Seven West Media, Toyota, and many more. What a roll call. From executives in the C-suite right down to emerging leaders and small business owners, Tim helps those develop the skills, habits, and character needed to maximise the performance and potential of those people that have to lead, to achieve their vision, and to achieve outstanding results. Please welcome to the State Library of New South Wales, Tim Higgs.
Thank you, Tim. Is my mic working? Yes? Thank you. Would have been helpful to be able to get these things plugged in before. So thanks, Tim. Great haircut, great name. So my name is Tim Higgs, as Tim's just said, and so one of the things that I'd like to be able to do is just to be able to just compose myself and get into this process, because I wasn't expecting all of that technical stuff. So did you get that? Did you get that structure that I just used? And if you didn't, that's okay. But I did it poorly for a specific reason, to make sure that you noticed it. If you've ever had presentation skills training, then you probably will have been taught that when you get up after a person has introduced you, you should delay and connect to the audience for a while before you end up launching into your talk. If you're too fast, what will end up happening is that people will end up feeling a sense of discomfort in their hindbrain. Perhaps you're too rushed, something's going on for you, and what ends up happening is a sense of disconnect. They may not know it apparently, and if you're unlucky, it will send a message down to their adrenal cortex to fire off some adrenaline, and potentially they're on their way out of it for the rest of your talk. If you do what I just did, which was on purpose, and go too far on the other side, what ends up happening is that, again, people feel that sense of discomfort, but only this time it's more likely to be readily apparent to them. They're more likely to notice that sense of discomfort, possibly because it's gone on for longer, or that they're asking the question, is this guy frozen? What's going on for him? Now, if I hit it in the sweet spot, I should potentially invoke a different response for you. It's a different chemical that goes off for you, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But what will happen is that you will likely connect more to me. You will feel this person is calm and composed, and be more likely to follow me in my journey through my talk, because there will be a sense of trust and connection. So what we're talking about here is structure. I'm not going to teach you how to present well. I'm talking about structure. And the structures that we as leaders can be able to use in order to invoke the right types of feelings within people versus the structures that we might use haphazardly that miss the point and that create environments that we don't want to create. And so it was Harry S. Truman that said, "A leader is a man who can get other men to do what they don't want to do and like it." Now, sexist language from the 1940s aside, I think he was pretty much on the money for what leaders really need to be able to do. In our modern day businesses, there are really two main things that leaders need to do. And that is that they need to be able to create a very clear vision and direction that people can get behind. And the second thing is they need to be able to have people be engaged in their work and able to contribute effectively to that vision. And all of the other stuff then is management, but they are really the two main things that leaders need to do. And if you invoke the right cocktail of hormones, then you get people engaged and going along with you. And if you're unaware of the structures that help aid that cause, then what you can end up doing is creating an environment that can be held for people, unwittingly. Now, some people might say, well, isn't that sort of manipulation, Tim? Well, I'd invite you to think, would you prefer to work in an environment that isn't very comfortable? Or would you prefer to work in an environment where your leader, or you as a leader, are creating a space where people can engage in their work, feel happy, comfortable, and that they're contributing to a cause? So now what's ended up happening is that I have invoked in you a sense that there's something uncomfortable. So with your permission, I'd like to induce another potentially positive chemical in what it is that you're doing. Is that okay with everyone? Thank you. And that is endorphins. And so to do that, I'm going to have to put on an Irish accent and just tell you a little joke, and that is that there was a truck that was loaded up with tortoises, and it ended up crashing into a train that was loaded up full of terrapins, and it was reported that it was a total disaster. So even if you didn't like the joke, you're possibly laughing at me now, and what I have induced is the endorphin response. Because endorphins increase creativity, they make us more relaxed or less stressed. They're regenerative, they help to aid better sleep and to be able to repair the body after stress. And also they're effective in boosting self-esteem. And if I had got the sweet spot in that earlier structure that I'd done, then potentially I would have induced oxytocin. And oxytocin is all about being able to build trust. It will potentially create you to be more generous, to connect and bond us, and also for you to have an increased empathy. But because I also delayed telling you that, I potentially have induced dopamine. Because dopamine, if I delay things, will have you searching for that thing coming up. It will make you more focused. It will potentially increase your memory, your attention, and it's about future possibilities. Positive possibilities, not necessarily negative ones, because they're going to be driven by some of the hormones that we see as being more negative. And so I was thinking, okay, what can I do in this talk today to be able to add value? What structure would be the most useful? So should I go to emotional judo, which Tim said, it talks about how to handle difficult conversations and it presents 10 structures for being able to do that effectively. Or should I go to my upcoming book, which is Emotional Judo 2, Deal, Don't Lead, which introduces you to 10 invisible structures that are useful for being able to influence and persuade. Or should I talk about Catapult the Academy and the types of programs that we run there? And other than those two areas, we go into things such as change management and being able to overcome resistance and using coaching as an effective management tool to be able to get the best out of people, among other things. And we also have created an ability to be able to be more effective in being able to generate behavioural change, and some studies say up to 40% more effective. But instead of that, I thought that I'd actually give you an overarching idea of a structure that informs every relationship that you have. And it is in all three of those areas that I talk about this. It's such a structure that is very, very commonplace, and yet people generally don't consider it. It's so similar to gravity in that we just sort of take it for granted. And until Newton pointed it out to us, probably not many people considered, why does something drop? It just did, and we just accepted it. Okay? So what I'm talking to you about is what I call the significance scaffold. And because emotional judo is my branding, I use the idea or the metaphor of judo mats laid out on a dojo floor. And a dojo, for those of you that don't know, is the place where we end up doing martial arts. And so in that, the judo mats are laid out thus. And something that you may not know is that in human needs psychology, there are 6 human needs. I'm not going to go into all of them, but the one that is important for us to remember is the need for significance. And in significance, what we do is we have this want to feel an importance in the relationships that we have. And coupled up with that is another theory called positioning theory, which came from a Canadian academic called Rom Hare. And Rom talks about the idea of how in all relationships, we either position ourselves or we are positioned by others, and we have to accept that positioning, or if we don't accept it, then we reposition ourselves. Now, it might sound simple, and Hare never talked about it being coupled up with significance, but in my view, that is what it's all about, is how we position ourselves into significance within all relationships. So at the top there we have significance, at the bottom we have insignificance or less significance. Now, you don't have to be insignificant in a relationship. You might just be less significant than the significant person in that situation. Let me give you an example. Right at the moment, because your ears and eyes are trained on me, that very action that you're doing is giving me the significance in this relationship that I have with you right at the moment. But the thing is, that doesn't make you insignificant, because if I shift the context, to me, you are incredibly significant. And I am here serving you in order to be able to give you something of value. So how does that sort of work? Well, because we generally take the first context, I take the significant role. And if I don't, I can't influence you, because it is impossible to influence somebody unless you take significance. And because these names are really cumbersome, I've changed them. But on the left-hand side of the mats, we have negative interactions, and behaviours, and on the right-hand side of the mats we have positive interactions and behaviours. So the changed names are that the first one is the gate crasher. The gate crasher is the person who seizes significance and muscles their way in using things such as aggressive behaviour and passive-aggressive behaviours. And down the bottom we have the negative insignificance or less significance, and that's what we call the uninvited. It's the person that didn't get the invitation to the party but accepts that that's their fate. And often the behaviours that are involved in this are about being able to take away from a person's capacity to do things and their belief in themselves. It's sort of like an acceptance that I'm not okay. Although some people will try and shove you there, and if they do, and you resist and reposition yourself, then you're not accepting going down into that place. And then on the other side, in the positive side, we have what are called the inviter qualities. And this is where a person is doing structures and behaviours to purposefully position other people into significance above them. Like I was saying before, I'm here serving you, and therefore I'm doing that as a way of being able to serve you, which puts you into a significant position. And the skill of listening is also a device which then positions somebody into significance. And the final one there is that people can be invited into significance. So a person with astute knowledge, a subject matter expert, those types of people are then invited into the position of significance. Now, is it possible for you to position yourself there? Yes, it is, and there's a structure to be able to do that. Because if you don't follow the structure, what ends up happening is that people can really perceive you as being a gate crasher, trying to seize significance, rather than doing it in an artful way to be able to get there. And that's generally going down to the inviter first before you end up going up. So what potentially happens for people is they start playing on the wrong side of the mats. And so if you're having difficult conversations, it's generally because you're playing on the wrong side of the mats. And when you play on the wrong side of the mats, that invokes a whole lot of hormones that we don't want. Now, just quickly as an advertisement, if you do want to be able to do this significance assessment and find out a little bit more about this and how it works for you, then you can go to my website www.emotionaljudo.com/register here. But what ends up happening for people is that they end up playing on the wrong side of the mats, and it induces things such as cortisol and adrenaline. And these are good chemicals generally, but if they're done over an extended period of time, then they're not usually things that we want to engage in, because they lead to things such as intolerance, irritability, where we have uncreativity or pessimism, and people become critical of each other, memory is impaired, and we can make bad decisions. And overall, that leads to health issues and burnout. So for an extended period of time, we don't want this. So very, very quickly, two little stories that I want to be able to tell you. One about a guy called Bill Michaels. Bill Michaels was the head of KPMG over in the UK, and in November last year, he called a town hall meeting to be able to then announce to people that they were going to have some entitlements removed. As the chairman, he said to them, "Stop moaning." Had he followed this structure, he wouldn't have had to have resigned in February, which he ended up doing because his position became untenable. And just last week, I was invited into an organisation where I did what's called a cultural audit, where I go into the organisation, and it's sort of like doing a building inspection on the culture of an organisation to see if it has the foundations for what they need. And what ended up happening is they brought me in because on this particular facility site, the new general manager had been very heavy-handed in the way that she'd gone about fixing some of the problems. And over half of the middle management had resigned in very, very quick time. So I was brought in to be able to then see what was going on within the culture and what was happening. Now, had this woman understood how to be able to get on and play with people on the right side of the mats, on the positive side of the mats, and induce the right cocktail of hormones, the oxytocin, the endorphins, and also the dopamine, then she would have been playing in a completely different way and potentially avoided those people resigning. So that then leads me to the last part, which is that if you want to learn how to be able to play on the positive side of the mats, you've got to be able to understand the structures that inform good practice of leadership that then plays on that side. And it is generally a default mechanism for human beings to go into defense mechanisms, and that means that we end up playing on the negative side of the mat. And so we need to be able to understand how we have those structures and how we can learn to be able to then promote those good feelings and chemicals in the people that we lead. So the final thing about this is about effective learning. Because you can understand these concepts and know what the structures are, but being able to embed the learning and create behavioural change is what it is that we're looking to achieve. And so that's a whole different conversation about Catapult and some of the effective learning mechanisms that we are using in order to be able to help people get connected to these behaviours that will serve them, rather than haphazardly using structures which are actually going to undermine them. If you'd like to have a conversation, I can be reached at support@catapultlpc.com. Thank you very much.